All right, guys, let's get this party going. Please follow us on social media, as always, on Instagram and Facebook, Creative Mornings CHS. Twitter, Charleston_CM. And definitely use our hashtags whenever you want to post something awkward that I'm doing here up on stage. Hashtag CMCHS, hashtag Creative Mornings. All right, guys, without further ado, I want to bring up our speaker this month. Like I said, I couldn't think of a better person to talk about the theme change. He's been within Charleston for his entire life, and he's been a part of making very progressive changes throughout Charleston for the better part of 30 good years. He's worked for the Housing and Urban Development and made some amazing things happen within the homeless incidents here within Charleston, and also now he's working with a few other commissions aside from after running for the mayoral candidacy. And we'll have him tell you a little bit about that today. Those of you that know him, call him Dudley. Those of you that don't, have some respect. It's Councilmember. Please welcome William Dudley Gregorie.
Good morning. It's really good to be before an audience and not asking you for your vote. It's a thrill and an honor to stand before you during this creative morning where we're going to discuss change. Someone a little while talked about different people getting together. Trust me, folks, I'm pretty different. I know very little about a lot of what you do, so I will try to be as generic so that it could apply to each one of you. Change is kind of a subject that you can take anywhere. But I was told to try to make sure that I talk about change as it relates to the creative community. What is change and what does it mean? Particularly as it relates to you. Many of you are startups. Change to me is to make a form, nature, content, or future course of something. Making something different from what it is or from what it would be if left alone. None of you in this room will leave it alone, because you are about change. And much of what you do will transform and change the course of history. And that's the kind of change that we need to talk about, because you need to empower yourselves to be the change. I think it was Benjamin Southworth, rebel against an institution, felt that the education system failed him, and in his own poor academic record was a source of humiliation and embarrassment. He was a passionate advocate for structural change and governmental engagement with the digital past, present, and future. So he sought to change that education exchange. Like you, he founded a startup that empowers teenagers ages 16 to 18 to learn coding, design, public speaking, and other fundamental skills to support them in finding meaningful work faster. His talk from Creative Mornings London in February 2014 speaks to the role of technology as a change maker and how we should be using it more to make change in our world. Oh, and in Ben's word, do stuff, smile, and be kind. His approach is very, very similar to the Women in Technology approach locally, who have developed Code On, a coding camp, at a laundromat on Reed Street, of which I think is admirable. The futurist advisor and speaker, David Howe, believes that the speed of change today is up to 100 times faster than it was 1,000 years ago. And these changes are responsible for the future are being paved by you today. Howe states that we are in a global stage of human evolution, with planetary developments as our only remaining boundaries. The word globalization is no longer solely economic, but relies on a variety of factors. And he highlights the tremendous freedoms we are given in today's society, stressing that we have more choice in every aspect of our lives than ever before. This freedom of choice has led the flow to global and to the individuals like yourselves. Individuals are connecting in an accelerated speed, giving consumers more power than companies and shifting the focus from institution to the individual. Very different from my days of the trends from, what kind of radios were there back then? Transistor radios and party line telephone. You are definitely in a totally different era than my time. What does all this mean to your world, Creative Morning? All solutions are local and should engage the local community. As our city moves closer to becoming Silicon Harbor and toward a world-class arts center, it is important that you become a part of that evolution. The city, along with many startups, are involved in code camps. Most of you are familiar with our flagship enterprise that also sponsors code camps through our business services division. Flagship 1 and 2 has produced many startups locally. People Matters, Boomtown, and others. The city will be expanding its flagship incubator opportunities for you by building 90,000 square feet of incubator space along Morrison Avenue. According to Gary Stanfield, of which most of you know, of Dig South, like many budding tech hubs, Charleston and other surrounding southeastern cities face similar issues outside of Silicon Valley. Most of you know that capital is hard here, and so is recruiting the light talent and finding good mentors. Although capital will always be a challenge for startups, there are organizations such as CRDA, Charleston Open Space, and our digital corridor looking to solve the other two components. Some of you may not know that the city of Charleston has a community development corporation that has a loan fund that you can access to help you with many of your startup ventures. We also must pay very, very close attention, not just to the tech world, but the artist community in general. We must create an incubator space for all forms of art, which is just as important as the tech world. And even more important, we must develop affordable housing so that startup companies will be able to afford to live and work in the same areas. None of these local efforts can be accomplished without change. Some of us have an odd reaction to change. Want to, but uncertain. All change humanity will experience, whether we want to or not, in this new century, this new age. The speed of change, 100 times faster than 1,000 years ago. 10 or 100 years, it will be even faster. We have more power than ever in human history. We have unlimited choice as individuals. This is the electron connection of humanity. There are over 5.2 billion cell phone subscribers in the world. And to many, it's their first phone. It accelerates connections. And most of those cell phone holders are under the age of 25. This is economic leverage. It gives everyone a chance to connect and compete. I can call any of you here with my smartphone in 5 seconds, but I can also call China in 12 seconds. No time, distance, or place limiting human communication. You can run a company from your smartphone. We must move from structures to nets. There are two realities. The screen is as compelling as the physical realities. Authority has gone from the institution to the individual, from the physical to the non-physical. Dollars move at the speed of light. Searches take place in non-physical reality. Social media is now our word of mouth, our new grapevine. This is the transformation decade. We should be the parents of our future rather than the offspring of our past. It is far too easy in the modern life to conform completely to the ways and systems in which we inherit. This is your time to change the world. All the power is in your hands. In closing, I'd like to make some connections. The candle that you're smelling from Rewind, believe it or not, is a candle that I burned last night on my coffee table. So Rewind, I've got you. Okay? And it is a very, very good fragrance. But I also feel an even bigger change and connection for me. Because as I came in this morning, I made a connection. You see, I am a trustee of Mother Emanuel AME Church, a church where 90 seconds changed the world, the community, families, and church. We are a resilient church. We're resilient to change. We've survived earthquakes. We've survived our steeples flying away and never being found. We've survived the burning of our church, and we will survive June 17th. I was able today to hug someone, family member, who was involved in the change that our church is experiencing. So I went full circle, and I was able to hug a Roof family member and tell him that we forgive as a church. So for me today at Creative Morning, we've gone full circle. Change is ever present. As we sit here today, we're all changing as we age by the second. But you, as a body and as young people, have an opportunity to take our world places that many of us cannot imagine. As a council member, I will do my best to support whatever endeavors that you want to take and move forward in your businesses. I hope this morning, while I was not very specific, that I've at least enlightened you to what change is to me and how change can empower you and your startup businesses. I know I had 20 minutes, but it really didn't take me that long because I wanted to just have a little time for any Q&As that you might have. But I want to thank all the sponsors for having me this morning to talk about a subject that we all can probably talk about for a lifetime, because it's something that is a lifetime, which is change. Again, I want to thank the sponsors, and I want to encourage you to make me better at helping you to change your lives and to realize your dream, because I am a public servant and I work for you. Again, thank you, Creative Mornings, for having me. Any questions?
Thank you, Dudley. A beautiful talk. Anybody have a question for William Dudley Gregorie? Okay, give me a second.
No, I'll talk loud. You mentioned affordable housing. One of the issues currently before the City Council in Charleston and also the Town Council in Mount Pleasant is the issue of short-term rentals, Airbnb-style rentals, which are currently illegal in both of these towns, and is a part of what we call the shared economy. Our host talked about riding home in Uber, part of the shared economy. My grandmother, when she got old and became an empty nester and had empty rooms in her house, 70 years ago, was renting out rooms to college kids and people passing by because it helped her stay in her house and age in her house, and yet our city makes this illegal right now. What is your opinion about this kind of entrepreneurship and shared economy?
Thank you. Just as your grandparents did it, my grandparents did the same thing. We always house shared to assist in expenses, and it goes a long way. This is a different time, of course, and what we've done is to make sure that the shared rentals get a fair hearing. Council has asked the mayor, passed legislation to require that we put together a task force made of people who have varied opinions on the house sharing issue. And this committee will be 16 people, just as we went through the entertainment district issue, and we did that through a public process. We are going to do the same thing with the home sharing issue, because we do think it's something that we need to hear more from the residents of the city. There are some issues that will have to be worked out, regardless of how it shakes out. Just think about it. You're in a neighborhood where on your block there are 14 houses. 10 of those houses have shared spaces. And let's say that there's a 3-day minimum, okay? And let's say that my neighbor's house, he has the potential of doing that for 5 bedrooms, okay? That's potentially 15 people, okay, that could be there in my neighborhood in one day, with potentially the same amount of cars, parking, et cetera, et cetera. So there are definitely issues that we have to address, which is ones like that. If you have a community that's been a bedroom community for 30 years and all of a sudden it becomes something different than what the property owners thought it would be over time. So we have not made a decision, open-minded on this issue, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the public will have to say about it. Because you know there are areas of the city where we're already doing it. Okay? Cannon Elliott Borough, for instance. Okay? So it's not like the precedent has not been set.
Come back when you say.
Just
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jessica Rodman. I'm a student at CFC and I kind of focus on social sustainability. And one of the topics that kind of comes up a lot is personal resilience and organizational resilience. And I just wanted to maybe hear your thoughts on how you might spread resiliency, both like within individuals, like interactions and through organizations, so that when you're faced with change, which is inevitable, it happens all the time, even in cases like planning preservation, there's always change. How do you go about keeping collaboration, cooperation a thing, and being resilient despite a great diversity of viewpoints and backgrounds?
I think one of the things that our new mayor, Tecklenburg, is doing is making sure that the public is engaged. And I just talked about an example of how we're going to do that. We're not only doing that with shared rentals, we're also doing that with the hotel industry. As you know, there was a proposal to do a moratorium on hotels. The question is whether or not that moratorium would be appropriate for our city. Well, again, we're forming a public task force to get public input. We're hiring a facilitator, and we're also doing a study to make some recommendations back to council so that we can, in fact, make an informed decision. So I think throughout this new administration, just as the Riley administration did, we will continue to engage the public so that we can consider the public input before we make decisions that could have an effect on all of our lives.
I come from a place where we work too much. I come here, it seems. Sorry. I come from a place where we work too much. I come here, public institutions close Friday afternoon. How on earth are we going to get stuff done if we don't stay at our jobs?
I'm going to try. I think you're saying that you work too much. Am I correct? Or help me?
Sorry. All right. So I take the buses a lot because I'm disabled. Okay. I walked into the CARTA office Friday afternoon. 3:30, it was dead. There was one employee there. And I get it. In the summer when it's crazy hot, you got to get out. But if you're not putting in the time, you're going to not get the solutions. So is there anyone talking about this?
Good question.
As a CARTA ambassador, John Street has certain people that they're out and about the city. It's not a mega staff building. It's just a few folks. Trust and believe. And matter of fact, you need to be in touch with Michelle Emerson because you'll be a very great CARTA ambassador. I'll give you a number.
And that's what we need.
Now, housing.
I would be the first to say that CARTA leaves a lot to be desired. Okay? But we must think about CARTA regionally. We do have, I think, one of the most creative and able-bodied chairmen of CARTA that we've had in a long time. He just happens to also be the chairman of our transportation committee. And I'm talking about Mike Seekings, a highly competent individual. CARTA is on the radar. A part of the problem that we have with CARTA is not that CARTA has with us, I would say. Not enough of us ride public transportation. Secondly, in order for us to really make CARTA profitable, here goes this bad word, we need more density. Okay? As the city becomes more dense, as we continue to develop along Morrison Drive, and trust me, in the next 10 years you won't recognize it, as we continue to develop West Edge, how many people know where West Edge is? Okay. West Edge is a $1 billion development along Haygood, Lockwood Drive, Fishburne Street. It's going to be the new knowledge-based economy, folks. Get ready. I'm on that board. I'm saying all that to say that as the city continues to develop, CARTA will become more relevant and necessary. We're trying to make sure that as we do developments like NOMO, everybody know what NOMO? NOMO has its own transportation system. Okay? So we're trying to tie transportation to some of the developments. But back to your question, I do think that you need to be an ambassador. I do think that CARTA needs to have its buses later. We are trying to get CARTA to have their buses to run between 12 and 2 because many of the service industry in particular, it's very, very expensive for them when the buses stop and they've got to take Uber or a cab all the way to Goose Creek. Okay? So we're very, very cognizant of the need. And Councilman Lewis is the voice on council that continues to remind us that when we made the change to the taxis, the effect that that has had on Carter ridership in particular. So that's a long way to answer your question, but I do think that you need to be a Carter ambassador, just as the young lady in the back said. Any more questions? Yes.
Good morning. Since we're on the subject of transportation, I don't have any change in my pocket because all of my change goes to the parking meters. So I just want to know, can we get new, this is probably the wrong question, but can we get some new parking meters, the kind where we can put our cards in, or, you know, the kind like they have in D.C. with the apps or something? I mean, I don't mind paying, but I would like to keep my change and, you know, this, so I don't have to have zero.
The answer to that question is yes, and we're already working on it, okay? We're already working on it, okay? But I'm going to tell you one thing, parking is going to start creeping up in cost, because if we want people to stop driving, if we want people to use bicycles, okay, it's got to be expensive to drive, okay? It's got to be expensive to drive. And to the question regarding a bike-friendly city, I did hear you, and we are working towards that. But as a public servant, I have to also tell you that the bikers need to observe the law. Okay? They really, really do. It has to work both ways. We can create a bike-friendly city, but if the bikers are riding on the wrong side of the street, if the bikers are not signaling like they're supposed to, we will continue to have those kinds of accidents. We're going to do our part as a city to try to increase bike routes. All of you know the controversy about closing the lane on the Ashley Bridge, okay? That's a part of trying to make us a bike-friendly city. But all of you have also experienced the pushback in that regard, because we don't want to create traffic jams all the way to Folly Road in Maybank. Because guess what? If the first car stops, it has an echo effect all the way, sometimes for miles. So we are going to continue to try to make sense decisions with respect to biking in the city of Charleston and expand the routes. But the bikers also have to do their part. Any more questions? One more. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
It might not be very quick. Maybe I should give it back. So this actually is kind of a question based on an experience I had a couple weeks ago. And I was downtown, and it was early in the morning, and I was going to my local favorite coffee shop I go to every day. And across the street, there was a group of teenagers, and there was a lot of yelling and hateful things being said. And I am looking around, and there are no adults. And I don't want to cross the street. And I'm sorry, I kind of get shook up when I think about the story because it was really upsetting. But I'm walking down the street, and it's getting louder, the yelling and the pushing, and I look, and I see one of the boys, the hand contact goes on the shoulders, and terrible things are being yelled. And it's a group of boys, probably 10 of them between 15 and 18. And I walk across the street, and I'm shaking, and I ask, is everything okay? And the boy said, yes, ma'am, everything's fine. And I said, okay, I'm not really sure that's true because I was hearing so many swear words, and There was so much yelling. And the littlest boy, who was maybe, I don't know, the youngest looking one, maybe 13 or 14, he just said, he goes, well, this is how we talk. This is how we talk. It's okay. And I said, I don't care what color you are. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what the situation is. You don't talk to each other like that. It's just not nice. And the way he had said that was kind of based on the fact that I was very different in this situation. And I'm a single woman crossing the road. I'm Caucasian and walking into a group of African-American boys. And what he had said was, I'm black. We can talk like this. And I said, you can't. And I just walked closer to him, and I said, I don't care what color you are. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care who's right or wrong. You just can't talk like that. If you want to be respected, if you want other people to respect you, if you want other people to know you respect them, you don't talk like that. And he just looked at me and he said, yes, ma'am. And the boys dispersed, and I thought, okay, as I'm turning my back, this could be the moment that I get pushed down or they start, yelling at me, or that didn't happen. And so I shared that story on my Facebook page with my friends and my family, and everybody said, you can't do that. You cannot walk across the street. What if one of them had a knife, or what if one of them had pushed you? And I said, it doesn't matter. The right thing to do was to walk across the street. They all looked at me as I crossed the street, knowing that I'm very out of place and that maybe nobody's ever crossed that street before, to go talk to them. And my question is, how do we change that mindset?
That's an unbelievable question. But apparently there were lessons learned. Okay, you were teaching. They listened. They did not get angry and retaliatory toward you, of which some groups may have. That's why you have to be very careful in your approach. But I think that there are some things that are cultural. There are some things that are boy Manny. We do talk differently when we're amongst each other, but we don't do it so that people can hear it across the street. So all I could say to you is be careful. And those are things that would have been great if we had their names, because then we could have probably mentored some of the boys. If you know where they are, maybe before I leave, you can sort of give me where they are, and I will go there, and if I see them, I will chat with them. But guess what? The same thing that applies to you going there would apply to me. So we all have to be very, very careful and mindful, okay, of what we're doing. Well-intended, but still, you've got to be very, very careful. And I think there was a lesson that you did impart on them. And trust me, they listened, and it may work, okay? The next time you see them, they may not be as boisterous or loud or disrespectful to each other, because they remembered the lesson that you taught them and the lesson they taught you, that you cannot stereotype and put everybody in the same box, because it could have been different. You just chose the right group, okay?
Thank you. Councilmember William Dudley Gregorie, everybody. I'm sure now you've opened up even more questions, so you might get some emails, some phone calls, and that was very bold of you to take on these awesome questions, and thank you guys for being here today. Stick around if you're down to work here at the co-working space. This was an excellent event, and we'll continue the party going throughout the day. Stick around with us and talk to Corinna from Vega. We'll see you next month.